Welcome. This is the project update for the Stratos project. My name is Neil MacDougall. I am the project lead for the Stratos project and I work for SUSE.
Hi, and I'm Richard Cox, and I'm a software developer at SUSE.
Brilliant. So today, as I said, we're going to give you an update on the Stratos project, talk about some of the work we've been doing since the last summit, and give you a demonstration of the new Kubernetes features.
Okay, very briefly, what is Stratos? Stratos is a web-based user interface for Cloud Foundry, and it provides a rich management experience for both developers and administrators. It was created by SUSE back in 2017, and over the years we've now progressed and we're a top-level Cloud Foundry project. So in this session I'm going to go through the slides very quickly, and we're going to focus the time on a demo. So Richard will demonstrate the new features that we've got for the new version 4.2. Two things we want to talk about in this session. The first of those is Stratos.app. So this is a new website that we've put together that really makes it easy for you to find and browse the documentation around Stratos. So before it was all in GitHub, it was a little bit difficult to find and browse around. Now we've got a nice documentation browser, and we're building out and improving the documentation as we go forward. The second one that I've mentioned already is 4.2. This is the latest release that we've just put together before the summit. You'll be aware of this thing called Kubernetes. Cloud Foundry Foundation and the projects are starting to embrace that. So we see kubecf, we see CF for Kate, Irene Quarks, and Stratos 2 is embracing Kubernetes. And in fact, it's done so for over 2 years. As SUSE, we've building extensions to support Kubernetes and Helm. And what we're announcing at this summit is that we are upstreaming those extensions to the Cloud Foundry Foundation. Now, they've always been available and open source, but now they will be moved upstream and they'll live in the main Stratos codebase. And we're also making it easy for people to take Stratos and build it with or without those features. So if you just want classic Stratos, you can still have that. So those features are out now and they're included in 4.2. There's a couple of slides in this deck that you can look at afterwards that give you a summary of the Kube and the Helm features. I'm not going to go through these today. Instead, I'm going to hand over the time for Richard to give you a much more in-depth demo where you'll get a good feel for what we can do.
So I'm going to walk through some of the Kube and Helm features that we've bringing into Stratos. So here we are at the Stratos applications screen, and here we can see I've got a Cloud Foundry attached, and we can see there's one application there. We can also dive down into the Cloud Foundry and see more information about this Cloud Foundry. We can see the organizations and routes. We can drill down to the organizations. And not much has changed here. But let's go to the marketplace. And for the Cloud Foundries that I've got attached, you can see we don't have any services. So wouldn't it be cool if we could add some services to this Cloud Foundry? And the way that we're going to do that is by installing MiniBroker. And MiniBroker is basically that will be able to provide the services that we want in the service marketplace. And to install MiniBroker, we're going to install its Helm chart to Kubernetes, all via Stratos. And to do that, we need to connect some Kubernetes endpoints and some Helm endpoints. So let's switch to the endpoints page, and here we can see that Cloud Foundry that we have. For those that don't know about Stratos and the endpoints, endpoints are basically a way that Stratos communicates with other systems. And there could be Cloud Foundries, Kubernetes, Helm repositories. And the basic flow is that an administrator would register these endpoints, and then users would be able to connect to those endpoints with their own credentials. And that will allow Stratos to communicate with these systems as if they were the user. So we've got our one Cloud Foundry. We need to add some Kubernetes. So I'm going to click register. And here we can see all the different types of endpoints that we can supply. And let's go for installing some Kubernetes via importing them from a kubeconfig, because that's just the quickest and easiest way to do it. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to supply a kubeconfig. And the Stratos will read that in and work out the context that you have in there. I've got two here, so I'm going to select both of those. Now, if the user associated with this context is something that we can process, then we will automatically connect to that. For the Minikube that I have here, it has local file certificates, so we have to do that in a second step, and it tells us that underneath. I'm going to hit next. And here we can see the steps that are going to be done. We're going to register and connect to the kind instance that I have here, and then we're going to register the Minikube one. I'm going to hit import, and that's all done. And we can see now we have 2 extra side nav items here related to those ones that we've added. We're going to go back to the endpoints page, and we can see we've got 1 connected and 1 disconnected. I'm just going to connect to this manually now by supplying the certificates. And there we have our Kubernetes that we can install our mini broker to. But before we do that, I'm just going to dive down into a mini Kubernetes, this Minikube, and this is all new now in 4.2. You can see here we can see some summary information about this instance. We can list the nodes that are here, the namespaces, and the pods. And here in the pods view, we can see that their state. We can also have a look at the containers in these pods. Let's switch back to the summary. There's a few features that we have that are in what we call tech preview. So these are disabled by default and can be enabled if you'd like to try them out. So the first of these 3 features here I'm going to show is the Kubernetes dashboard. So to make it easy to be able to view the Kubernetes dashboard, you can install it via Stratos. It's pre-installed, and then you can click on View Dashboard, and without having to log in, you can see this Kubernetes dashboard here with all of the normal functionality you'd expect. You can do things like select your selected namespace, see stats for those namespaces. You can even collapse that header to make it look a bit nicer as well. The second of the tech preview features is the terminal. So we can open a terminal, which is going to provide us kubectl and Helm CLI access to that instance. So you can do autocomplete as usual. And you don't have to worry about logging in. These are using the same credentials that you had when you connected to the Kubernetes. You can even list all namespaces in there as well. So that's the terminal. Now we're going to have a look at the third of the tech preview features. This is analysis. So you can run various analysis tools via Stratos. At the moment, we only have one that's Popeye. So I'm going to run that on the cluster. And we can see that there's automatic updates, and we've had one that's running and it's completed. We can click on that and we can see the results of this. You can also run this analysis tool at different levels as well that I'll talk to in later on. So now we have our Kubernetes instances installed. We need to add some Helm repositories. And Helm repositories are a collection of Helm charts, browse and then install. So I'm going to go back to the endpoints, click register, click on Helm, and then add a couple. I'm going to add SUSE. And I'm going to add one for our mini broker as well. And then it might show you synchronizing, and that's when Stratos is just working out what charts are in there and working out how we can display those as well. So now we've got 2 installed. We can see now we've got an extra side nav item called Helm. We can click on that and we can view all the charts that are in these 2 Helm repos. So let's have a look at one. We're going to drill down actually into the Stratos chart that's in the SUSE Helm repo. Here you can see the readme for the chart. You can see, you can flick to previous versions. We can go to the top one. If we wanted to install this, we can click on install. We would select a name. I'm not going to go through this, so I'm just going to click some junk in here. We specify a Helm chart or a Helm install name and a namespace to install to. And then you get to the point where you need to supply Helm values. If the Helm chart has a schema associated with it, we can dynamically generate a form that will allow you to easily enter those values. So for instance, here we have one for API keys. It's a drop down with some specific values. So I'm going to select all users. So this is one way you can supply values. Another is a more freeform YAML editor. So I'll switch to this, and now you can see the one that we've added there. So as we've got a nice schema, we could actually enter junk here, and we can syntax highlight, or there's syntax highlighting to show that there's a problem with this. If I hover over, you can see it says that we've got an invalid value there. Other things you can do with this side, you can copy from the chart values, and that's going to overwrite our current values, but that's fine. And this brings in all of the values with the defaults in. You can see on the right, we've got that, that outline there as well. if we were to edit some of these, and then we want to maybe get rid of the ones that we haven't edited, you can easily diff with that chart, and you can see it just retains the one we've changed. So that's it for the Stratos one, but we won't want to install that. We want to install our mini broker one. So let's go back to the Helm view and find mini broker, sorry. Mini broker. So we're going to install this. We're going to call it mini broker, and we're going to install it to the mini broker namespace. And we click on next, and we're going to bring in some values I've prepared from earlier, and I'm going to hit install. And then we're going to switch to the workloads view, and I'm going to quickly go to pods. So these are the pods associated with the mini broker workload, and you think of workloads as maybe instances of Helm charts. You can see there that it's this pod has gone from coming up to running, and we can expand that as well, and we can see the container in there that's all happy. I'm going to switch to another workload that we can see a bit more detail on. So to show off some of the features in workloads, I'm just going to switch to another workload. So this is a Stratos metrics workload. And at the top here, you can see a few interesting things. We've got the analysis. So we can run an analysis on this workload. And once that's done, we can then overlay some information at the bottom. So a few details about the screen. So yeah, we can show some very basic details about where it's installed to, whether about the Helm chart, the pods and containers in this workload, and all the other resources as well. And we've run the analysis tool, and then we can overlay the analysis run, and we can see here we've got some items associated with our resources. So I'm just going to click on this one, and we can see them listed here for services in this workload. There's a few things we might want to address. Other things, upgrade. So you can see that we've got some upgrades available on the right. If I click on upgrade, you can see there we've got 121 installed, and there's one available to install as well. We can then go through and upgrade to that if we wished. Other things in the workloads view, you can see some notes if they were supplied. You can see some values. I would click on that because it's got some other interesting values in, and history. So if we were to do an upgrade, we would see that in the history. You can see the analysis that we've run as well in a more separate view. And the fourth of the tech preview features that I'm going to show you is the overview. And the overview is a graph layout of all your Kubernetes resources and how they interact and connect to each other. What you can do is add the security overlay, and you can see an outline on ones that you might want to look at with their warnings as well. So we have our mini broker, but we still don't see it in the marketplace. I am going to run one script in the background that's just going to run the CLI tool to register the service broker. Now I'm going to hit refresh, and here we are with all of the service offerings that the mini broker provides. If I was to go down to Redis, and let's say we want to create an instance of this, I'm going to select a organization in space for our new service instance. I'm going to select a version for the service plan, and I'm going to give it a name. Finish. So that's then in Cloud Foundry, our service instance. We can also switch back to Kubernetes and go to namespaces. And if we find our mini broker namespace, we can actually go in there and we can see the pods that the mini broker is bringing up. The mini broker is bringing up this pods to support the service instance that we've created. And we can see the status of those as well.
Thanks, Richard. So what's next? Well, we're continuing to add support for the Cloud Foundry v3 API. We're adding support for localization, making it easier to extend Stratos, making sure Irene works well within Stratos, and continuing to refine the UI and fix bugs. There's a couple more sessions at this year's summit you might be interested in. So we have a Stratos Project Office Hours session. If you want to drop by and ask us questions, we have time to do that. We'll be available to answer them and speak to you. Tomorrow we have a hands-on lab where you can learn yourself to deploy Stratos to Kubernetes and explore the new features that we've shown you today. So thank you very much for attending. We rely on your input. If you use Stratos, please let us know. Please engage with us in the Slack channel. We're more than happy to help. Okay, if there are no questions, maybe we'll just we can ad lib while we wait. So, as I say, there's a Q&A box on the right-hand side. Ask a question there. We'll ping it in the just the message chat, and we'll get onto it. We do have 2 other sessions that we showed in the video you just saw. So later on today, there's a Stratos office hours. So if you want to talk to the team further, then come meet us there. And we have a hands-on lab tomorrow. What are you most excited about for people to try? That's a great question. So I think all the stuff we've done on the Kubernetes is stuff that we built a while ago, and we've been improving over the last at least 2 years. And it's been open source, but it's been in the SUSE repo. And so this is the first release where we've upstreamed all of that. The SUSE version and the upstream cloud version are pretty much identical now, apart from just some branding changes. So this is great to see all of that go upstream and be available to the community, as well as the Kubernetes stuff. We've just been polishing the UI across the board. So from release to release, hopefully you'll see it just look a little bit nicer, a bit slicker. So I'm just hoping people can give it a try. There's lots of different ways of deploying it. I'm excited to see if people are going to deploy it into into Kubernetes with Helm, give it a whiz, try connecting kube clusters. As you see, we can connect to the public cloud ones, as well as kind of on-premise clusters. And the Helm functionality, I think, is probably the most exciting that I see. We've kind of spruced up recently. We've added Artifact Hub support, which is a recent change from Helm Hub. So yeah, I'm hoping people can dig in, give it a try. And we always look for feedback, right? So we're looking for feedback from the community as to what features they would like to see. Obviously, your bug reports, I'm sure there are some, so we're happy to take those and get on top of those, as well as get your input on what you would like to see. Either the features that we have already, where we should take those next, small improvements, right? Things that would just make it a little bit easier to use, as well as new stuff where we either have gaps, or you kind of say, hey, have you thought about adding this or taking it in this direction? We'd love to get all of those. So head on over to our GitHub repository. Obviously, there's the Stratos.app website now, where we've tried to bring together all the documentation. I think that's been a good achievement and something we're looking to improve. And I'm hoping that will help people have a focused place to go for Stratos to read docs, to understand how to install it in the capability we have. But kind of bugs and improvements, head on over to the GitHub repo and just file as an issue. Intended audience. So that's a great question. So we try and aim at both developers and administrators. I guess we have slightly more on the developer side for Cloud Foundry in terms of being able to view applications, create org spaces, and deploy applications from the UI. So it's probably more developer focused. There's a little bit of administrative capability. Some of those can be done by org managers. So the ability to create quotas. If you click onto the Cloud Foundry view, you get a lot more if you're an administrator. But there's probably more of a focus on the developer. With the Kubernetes side, maybe the focus is slightly more on the administrator than the developer. Although developers can go in and use the functionality. Obviously, with our back, you'll only get access to the resources that you've been granted permission to. So we try and aim at both. We are trying to cover the developer a little bit more, I think, than the administrator, and that's something we're trying to improve over the coming releases as well. Great questions. Thank you. I think we're out of time. That went quickly. So thanks for joining. Thank you for watching the session. As I say, there is plenty more Stratos in this summit yet. So come and find us later on in the office hours, or come and try the hands-on as well, where you'll get to fire up Kubernetes cluster, you'll deploy Stratos through Helm, and really explore some of the functionality that Richard walked you through today. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the summit. Thanks, everybody.